In this video, we will show you how to replace your heater control bypass valve on this Ford Ranger with a 2.3 liter engine. This will be located along the back side of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Let's get started on our job. Along the top of the coolant reservoir, we can remove the cap from the area. We'll just give that a quick inspection and set it aside. Now we can make our way under the vehicle so we can start draining the engine coolant. Now underneath the front of the vehicle, you're going to find that you have a plate that comes across the entire lower aspect of the radiator. That plate is held in place with 4 13mm headed bolts, 2 along each side. You'll also find that you have 2 push clips, 1 along each side. With that said, start off by removing the mounting bolts, and then you can remove the push clips and lower this plastic unit down and out of the way. Inspect your mounting hardware as you remove it. Replace it as necessary. There's this side. I'll do the same on the other side, and then we'll move along to those push clips. For the push clips, you can use a small prying device. I'm using a trim tool. Let's set this aside. Now that we have the plate out of the way, we've exposed the drain for the cooling system. Make sure you have a collection bucket under this area. We'll continue on by turning the plug counterclockwise and wait until we see a steady trickle of fluid coming out of this area into our collection bucket. To help divert this into the collection bucket, I'll just be using a hose here. You don't necessarily have to do this. Keep in mind, coolant is a chemical. Don't get it on your skin or in your eyes. Let's turn this counterclockwise. Let's let this drain. Once you feel as though the coolant has drained out of the system, continue on to closing off your drain. Just make sure the petcock's nice and tight. Get this out of here. At this point, we can put on our plate. Align the push clips along each side, press them into position. Now we can install our 4 mounting bolts, 2 on each side. At this point, everything should be nice and tight underneath the vehicle. Now let's make our way up into the engine compartment. Looking close to where the transmission and oil dipstick are, you're going to find that you have several coolant hoses, and that leads to the valve. To start removing the valve assembly itself, continue on with removing the vacuum line leading to it. Just go ahead and give that end a quick inspection, make sure it's soft and pliable, and nothing's broken or worn in any way. We can rest that aside for now. Continue on to dislodging your coolant hoses from the valve. To disconnect these, you just want to squeeze in on the clamp. You should be able to pull this out of place. If you have to, you could use a hose pick. Let's move along to our next hose. Quick check. Now we can move along to our final 2 hoses down along the bottom. These ones are a little bit harder to gain access to, but typically you can go ahead and maneuver this around as needed. Let's get that last hose off of there. There it is, friend. Okay, let's get ready for the installation of our brand new valve. Make sure you have it in the proper orientation. So we have this area facing up diagonally. Let's continue on with the lower hoses first. Slide that on there. Take your clamp, slide it into the original position, or at least as close as possible. Double check to make sure each one of your hose connections are secured as you continue. As we bring the upper hoses into place, pay attention to your throttle cable. We want to make sure that this is along the bottom of each of those hoses. We'll take the shorter of the two hoses from the heater core and connect it onto the rearward side of the valve. Press that on there as far as possible. Let's get the clamp in place. As for the forward hose, that will go up inside this bracket. It goes right over the top there. Continue on to your vacuum line. Press that on as far as possible. Double check to make sure it's completely secure. Now it's time to fill the cooling system. When doing so, it's important to pay attention to the chart that's located along the front of the coolant reservoir. We want to be at approximately the maximum line when everything's said and done. What you'll notice is as you add coolant, it's going to start making its way down into the system and air will make its way up, meaning the coolant level will continue making its way down. Now, some people will try to use a funnel to fill the cooling system, in which case you want to be careful in this instance because you don't want to go past the maximum line. The funnel's pretty much just great for not making a mess. Other than that, if you did happen to have a specialty tool like what I have here, we're going to make sure that while we're creating vacuum and we're starting to evacuate it by drawing fluid in, we're only going to make our way up to the maximum line and not past that. We'll be using the manufacturer specified fluid for this and of course making sure that it is mixed. At this point, I'll get my tool set up. If you're using a vacuum system like I am, it's important to make sure that the system does hold vacuum. We'll just watch this gauge right here and make sure it doesn't drop down into the yellow, or worse, into the red. Now, assuming that hasn't moved into the yellow or into the red, we'll continue on adding coolant. As you can tell, the coolant is making its way above the maximum line, but it's also drawing the coolant down at the same time. At this point, we're going to continue on by releasing pressure here. We'll allow this to make its way down, and then we can top it off as necessary. Okay, the next thing you want to do is hop in the passenger compartment. Start up your vehicle and let it run for a little while. Allow it to get up to normal operating temperature. Have the heat setting in the hot temperature setting. At that point, the thermostat should open up and allow any air inside the system to be able to make its way out to this point and trickle out. The coolant will make its way down a little bit. Just go ahead and make sure it's topped off up to the maximum line. After you've run the vehicle and you're sure you have no air in the system, continue on with your coolant reservoir cap. Okay friends, we've got our vehicle back together. At this point, you want to go ahead and clean up your mess. Check for leaks, and then take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.